The day James Sullivan moved into the dilapidated house at the end of Maple Street, the neighbors watched from behind curtains and whispered among themselves. What kind of person would buy that eyesore? The peeling paint, sagging porch, and overgrown yard had been an embarrassment to the otherwise well-maintained neighborhood for years. But none of them could have guessed the heartbreaking reason behind his decision, a truth that would eventually silence their judgment and change their community forever. If you're moved by stories of extraordinary sacrifice and unexpected community, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more real-life tales that remind us of the power of human connection. James Sullivan pulled his rusted pickup truck into the cracked driveway of 1487 Maple Street, his 11-year-old daughter Lily sitting quietly beside him. Her thin frame seemed to disappear into the oversized hoodie she wore, her eyes fixed on the house before them, their new home. "It doesn't look like much now," James said, trying to inject enthusiasm into his voice. "But you should have seen the place I grew up in. This is a palace compared to that." Lily didn't respond. She hadn't said much since the diagnosis 6 months ago. Acute lymphoblastic leukemia. 4 words that had shattered their world and drained their bank account with frightening speed. "The inside is better," James promised, though he knew it wasn't. The house had been on the market for 3 years, its price dropping steadily until it became the only property in Westfield that James could afford while still having enough money left for Lily's treatments. As they stepped out of the truck, James noticed Mrs. Abernathy from next door watching them from her immaculate garden. She made no attempt to hide her disapproval as her eyes traveled from the peeling paint to James's worn jeans. "Welcome to the neighborhood," she called, her tone suggesting the opposite of her words. James nodded politely before guiding Lily inside. The interior smelled of mildew and abandonment. Water stains marked the ceiling, and the hardwood floors were warped in places. But it had a solid roof, functioning plumbing, and, most importantly, it was only 10 minutes from the children's hospital where Lily received her treatments. That night, after tucking Lily into her sleeping bag in what would eventually be her bedroom, James sat on the floor of the empty living room and allowed himself a moment of doubt. Had he made the right choice? The mortgage payments were manageable, but the house needed so much work. Work he would have to do himself because every spare dollar was earmarked for medical bills. He pulled out his phone and looked at the photo of Sarah, his late wife. She died in a car accident when Lily was just 7, leaving James to navigate parenthood alone. Now, with Lily sick, he felt her absence more acutely than ever. "I'm doing my best," he whispered to the photo. "I hope it's enough." The first few weeks in the house were harder than James had anticipated. He worked his construction job during the day, took Lily to treatments in the evenings, and tackled home repairs late into the night. Sleep became a luxury he couldn't afford. The neighbors' curiosity about the newcomers quickly turned to judgment. James's truck often left early and returned late. The yard remained untamed. Paint continued to peel. And the quiet, pale girl who rarely emerged from the house became the subject of speculation. "I heard he's running from something," Mrs. Abernathy told the other neighbors during their monthly book club meeting. "Probably debt. Or worse. The girl never plays outside," added Mr. Peterson from across the street. "Something's not right there." Only Elena Rodriguez, a young nurse who lived 2 doors down, reserved judgment. "Maybe they're going through something we don't understand," she suggested, but her voice was drowned out by the others' certainty. Meanwhile, inside the house, James fought his own battles. Lily's condition wasn't improving as quickly as the doctors had hoped. The side effects of her treatment left her exhausted and nauseous. Some nights, he held her as she cried from the pain, feeling helpless and terrified. One evening, after a particularly difficult treatment session, James carried a sleeping Lily from the truck to the house. As he struggled with the door key while holding her, he heard footsteps behind him. "Need a hand?" It was Elena, returning from her hospital shift in scrubs. Before James could respond, she gently took his keys and opened the door for him. As the light from inside spilled out, Elena caught sight of Lily's pale face and the hospital bracelet still on her wrist. "Is she okay?" Elena asked, her professional concern evident. James hesitated, then nodded toward the living room. "Can you come in for a minute?" That night, over a cup of instant coffee at his makeshift kitchen table, James told Elena everything, about Sarah's death, Lily's diagnosis, and why he'd bought the cheapest house in Westfield despite its condition. "The hospital is close," he explained. "And I needed to keep enough money for her treatments. The insurance helps, but it doesn't cover everything." Elena listened without interruption, her eyes occasionally drifting to the ceiling where water stains spread like dark continents across a beige map. "Why haven't you told anyone?" she finally asked. James shrugged. "Pride, I guess. And I don't want Lily to be the sick girl. She's already lost so much of her childhood." Before leaving, Elena looked around the house with new eyes. "You know," she said carefully, "I have some friends who are pretty handy. If you'd let us, we could help with some of these repairs." James started to refuse, but Elena cut him off. "Not charity. Just neighbors being neighbors." The following Saturday, James woke to the sound of vehicles pulling up outside. Looking through the window, he was stunned to see Elena stepping out of her car, followed by 3 men carrying toolboxes. Behind them, Mrs. Abernathy emerged from her house, curiosity evident in her stance. "What's going on?" James asked as he opened the door. "Reinforcements," Elena replied simply. "This is my brother Miguel, he's a plumber. And these are Carlos and Dion from my church. Carlos does roofing, and Dion can fix just about anything electrical." Before James could process this, Mrs. Abernathy approached, her usual reserve replaced by undisguised interest. "Is everything all right?" she asked, eyeing the tools. Elena looked at James, silently asking permission. After a moment's hesitation, he nodded. "Mrs. Abernathy," Elena said, "James's daughter Lily is battling leukemia. He bought this house because it was close to the hospital and affordable enough to leave money for her treatments. We're here to help with some repairs." The older woman's expression transformed from suspicion to shock, then to something like shame. She looked at James with new eyes. I had no idea," she stammered. "My late husband was a contractor. I still have all his tools in the garage." By noon, the news had spread throughout the neighborhood. The man who had been the subject of their gossip was actually a father fighting desperately to save his daughter. The house they had complained about was a sacrifice made out of love. One by one, neighbors arrived. Some brought tools, others food. Mr. Peterson, who owned a landscaping business, showed up with his crew and equipment. "The yard's on us," he said gruffly, unable to meet James's eyes directly. Inside, Lily watched the activity from her window with wonder. "Dad," she called, "why are all these people here?" James, who had been working alongside Miguel to fix a leaking pipe, came to her side. "They're helping us, sweetheart. Sometimes people surprise you." By evening, the transformation was remarkable. The roof had been patched, the worst of the plumbing fixed, and the yard cleared. Mrs. Abernathy had organized a painting committee for the following weekend, and Mr. Peterson had drawn up plans for a small garden that Lily could tend when she felt strong enough. As the neighbors gathered on the newly cleared lawn for pizza, delivered anonymously by someone in the community, James found himself surrounded by people who had been strangers that morning. "Why?" he asked Elena quietly. "Why did you do all this?" She smiled. "Because that's what community means. We take care of each other." Over the next few months, the house on Maple Street continued its transformation, as did the lives of those within it. Every weekend brought new helpers and further improvements. The neighborhood that had once whispered about James now rallied around him. Mrs. Abernathy became Lily's unofficial grandmother, sitting with her during treatments when James had to work. Mr. Peterson built her a raised garden bed that she could tend without bending over. The Rodriguez family organized a meal train that ensured James and Lily always had home-cooked food. And slowly, miraculously, Lily began to improve. Her doctors noted her increased energy and improved blood counts. "Whatever you're doing," her oncologist told James, "keep doing it." What they were doing, James realized, was living rather than just surviving. The house that had been a desperate compromise had become a true home, filled with the voices and care of an entire community. 1 year after moving in, James and Lily hosted a backyard barbecue to thank everyone who had helped them. The house was unrecognizable from the neglected property they had purchased: fresh paint, new shutters, a garden in bloom, and a tire swing hanging from the oak tree. As the neighbors gathered, Lily, her hair beginning to grow back in soft curls, stood beside her father. "I have an announcement," James said, his voice thick with emotion. Yesterday was Lily's final treatment. Her doctors have officially declared her in remission. The cheer that went up could be heard blocks away. Mrs. Abernathy wept openly. Mr. Peterson pretended something was in his eye. Elena hugged Lily so tightly that James worried she might break. Later, as the celebration continued around them, Elena found James sitting alone on the porch steps. "Penny for your thoughts?" she asked, joining him. "I was just thinking about how wrong I was," he replied. "When I bought this house, I thought I was making a sacrifice, giving up a nice home to pay for Lily's treatment. But this house gave us something more valuable than I could have imagined." "A community," Elena said. James nodded. "When Sarah died, I thought Lily and I were on our own. I was so focused on being everything for her that I forgot we need more than just one person to lean on." As the sun set over Maple Street, casting a golden glow over the gathered neighbors, James watched Lily laughing with the children who had become her friends. The house that had once been the neighborhood eyesore now stood as a testament to what people could accomplish together. The cheapest house on Maple Street had turned out to be priceless after all. 5 years later, the story of James and Lily Sullivan had become neighborhood legend. Lily, now cancer-free and thriving in high school, often gave talks at the Children's Hospital about her experience. James had started a foundation that helped other families facing medical crises with home repairs and maintenance. And the house at 1487 Maple Street? It had become the heart of the neighborhood, the place where new residents were welcomed, where community meetings were held, where children gathered to play. Sometimes, when new people moved to Westfield and heard whispers about the house at the end of Maple Street, they expected a tale of haunting or tragedy. Instead, they learned about a father's love, a community's compassion, and the true meaning of home. Because the most important thing about a house isn't its appearance or its price tag. It's the love that lives within its walls and the hands that help build it into something more than just a structure, into a place where healing happens, where hope grows, and where no one faces their battles alone.